Today I'm talking about two unusual things. One is unusual sources of pictures that you can use to sketch or draw and paint or whatever. And the other is unusual ways that you can reduce stress in your life. Let's get started. Okay, starting with the sketching. One source that I found for pictures that you can sketch are stickers. And here's some examples. They're great for painting practice as well, but there's so many kinds and so many options that you can choose from. It's just endless. You can, of course, also draw from real life. You can draw from magazines. You can draw from things like this. It's just endless. But I find with things like this, it's already a good composition. And it's just a really great way to practice things. So I decided to keep it fairly simple today because I'm a little short on time. And I really liked these two. I love the letters in this one and these little flowers, but the roses not so much. In this one, I love the anemone and all these little, the rose hips and the little leaves. So I'm going to combine the two in a little bit larger size, and I guess I could just leave them right up there. But the first thing I need to do, since I put them in order of how I think, which is left to right, and then I'm going to use some watercolor, which I've got here. I could do this with pencil if I wanted to, feel really confident about it, but I'm going to use a micron pen. And because, for one thing, it's permanent ink. It says archival. That means it's permanent. So when you use watercolor over it, once it's really good and dry, it won't move. And also because I think it's really good practice. I'm going to start with the flowers because the letters are going to go behind them. So when you're sketching, you have to draw, in pen in particular, you have to draw what's in front first. So I'm going to start with this flower, which I think is an anemone. I want to do kind of a little circle like that so I know where the center is. And it's got a lot of little fuzzy deals on it. And then it's got the little black, I don't even know what those are. They're stamens, or can't remember which one's a pistil and which is stamen. And it doesn't matter for the sake of this. And I'm also going to keep it quite loose. In other words, I'm not trying to reproduce this exactly. I'm trying to just do kind of an impression. So in the whatever's in front goes first notion, this petal is, for example, in front of this one, and this one is in front of the ones next to it. So if I look around the flower, I can just draw in those petals. And again, I'm not aiming for any kind of perfection. This is a sketch, not something that's going to end up in the Louvre. And speaking of the Louvre, which is the big art gallery in Paris, I'm actually going to France soon, which brings me to the topic of stress, because I love to travel. I love to have traveled. I love to be at my destination. I'm not really crazy about all the preparation and all the airports and the getting from here to there. I find that quite stressful as a rule. And so I've been thinking about stress, and because I'm a highly sensitive person, which is a category, not not something I just call myself, but what it means is your nervous system is more sensitive to a lot of input and overwhelm. So over the years, I've had to learn how to keep things calm so that it's not really hard on my body and my whole system. So that's why I've been thinking about stress. One of the things that I've figured out that helps with that is to prepare, but not forever. So for the last week or so, I've been thinking about what the weather's going to be like, what I'm going to wear, what places I'm going to be going, what shoes I need. And because it's winter and the climate there is the same, very much the same as where I live, which is in British Columbia in Canada, it could be really cold. It could be quite nice. And it's basically at the same latitude, almost exactly as here. So I have to think about, okay, what would I wear here and how do I pack all that? Okay, let's put this little petal in here. Then the rose comes up like this. So these kind of questions have been on my mind, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm also taking a carry-on suitcase because I don't want to lug a heavy suitcase and I don't want to pay extra in order to do that. So, but then winter clothes take up more space. So that means choosing judiciously and deciding what works with what, how I can minimize my luggage according to space and weight, because I'm traveling for most of it by myself, but I'm actually meeting someone in Paris and spending time with her family. And so that's helpful, but everybody still has to carry their own luggage or wheel it around or whatever. And let's face it, I'm not a kid anymore either, so I have to take that into account. There, I think that's really pretty. I could have made it bigger, and I could add more leaves and things if I want to. I like these little blue flowers in here, so I think I'm going to add a few of those. So my first unusual thing to de-stress is to prepare, but don't get caught in preparation so that it just goes around and around in your head and never goes anywhere, and you just stay awake at night going, what'll I do, what'll I do, what'll I do? Which leads me to the next point. Identify what is actually causing you to think like that, or me to think like that. So one of my issues was about the weather, because Paris is in northern Europe and it's cold. So I'd chosen to have a light winter jacket. But the more I looked into things, the more I went, you know what? I've seen some recent pictures of Paris and people are actually in parkas. And so I agonized a lot about layers and how to fit in more layers. Once I saw that people were actually wearing parkas in Paris, I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to take my big coat. And I live in Canada, so everybody's got a big coat, even if you live in an area that doesn't get a lot of big winter. You have to have a coat because sometimes here it can be very cold and we get a lot of snow, things like that. So I said, you know what? I have to take my big coat. And that solved a whole bunch of problems. Like, how many layers of sweaters do I need? Well, I need fewer. So that means they'll pack in my suitcase easier. So that's number two, identify what's causing it. Once I made the decision that I just have to take my parka, which is a nice coat, it's very warm, suddenly it solved a whole bunch of problems. It made it easier and it took the stress off. So once you identify what is the actual individual thing that's going to be causing the stress and deal with that one thing, it sort of takes care of all that stuff that goes around and around in your mind. Another way to reduce stress, that's a little bit unusual, is just eliminate the unnecessary. And sometimes we get caught up in little things. You just don't need to. They don't need to be done. So, for example, at Christmas time, my whole family was coming for Christmas, and I wanted to make the house really decorated so that it would be really fun for the children. Now, I have three grandchildren, and they live in a really small place, so they really can't decorate a great deal. My house isn't all that big either, but it's bigger than theirs, and I have a collection of Christmas stuff that's larger, let's say. So I wanted to do that, and I thought also, wouldn't it be fun if I made Christmas cookies with cookie cutters and icing and all? I thought, well, that'll be really fun for everybody. So I had this on my list. Okay, when am I between all the shopping, all the cooking, all the preparation, all the decorating, all the wrapping, which pretty much I did all of. When am I going to make cookies? I kept thinking, okay, when am I going to fit in making the cookies? And it just never came to it. And finally, I said, you know what? I just have to eliminate that. It's just not going to happen. And my husband was all along. He always tries to protect my time. He was like, well, what are you thinking? You can't do that. It's, you know. And usually when he tells me I can't do something, I go, yes, I can. You just watch me. But this time I went, you know what? It's true. I can't really do that. I can't do it and have some sanity and and be relaxed. Can you see that? Yeah, I guess you can see that. It's such a pretty color. I thought I would go with this sort of bluey green leaves. They have a little bit of purple in them too, so maybe I'll make some of them purple, but violet is quite almost violent. But it's so pretty when it's really pale. I think that's more than I want. But see, I can just pop it in here then, and I get that sort of dual color look. Anyway, that was number 3, eliminate the unnecessary. Number 4 is stop caring so much. So I ran into an issue recently where I was just going, I just feel like in turmoil all the time. I don't know what to do with my YouTube channel. I don't know how to make everything work. I'm just mixed up, and I don't like it, and I wasn't enjoying it, and so I was praying about it one day, saying, Lord, what do you want? What do you want me to do? I don't want to do just what everybody thinks I should do with my channel or with my art or with anything. I want to do what's the right thing for me to do. And he gave me some suggestions, and one of those was cease striving. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? So I pondered it for a while, and I thought, I went and looked it up online. I say, what does cease striving mean when you're a Christian? And what came up was, well, a bunch of different things. At least kind of the usual: relax more, meditate, blah, blah, blah. Go for a walk. All those things are great, not a problem, but I wanted something a little bit more descriptive. And so I found one article where the author went into more detail. He mentions some of the same things, but also the one that really spoke to me was let it fail. And I thought, oh, what if? What if I just moved from a position of I'm doing my best, and if it doesn't work out, I can let it fail? And suddenly a sense of peace came over me. Now, I'm not saying that this should be your course of action. I'm saying it was mine, but it might be, and maybe that will help you. But sometimes you need to just let go of the outcomes, and then life becomes more peaceful. Here's another example. I used to work as the sales manager for a hotel, and I had to go make sales calls at businesses saying, when you come through our town, why don't you stay at our hotel? And a lot of times I was kind of tired because I was going through some physical stuff. I was sometimes bored. Sometimes I was just in a frame of mind that wasn't really perky, let's just say. And sometimes in sales, you have to be kind of perky. So I remember one time sitting in my car outside of this industrial business and thinking, the last thing I really want to do is go in here and act perky and talk to these people about the hotel and stuff like that. But it was my job, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing the job that you're being paid to do. So, that's the point. And I thought, you know what? I might not feel like it, but I can certainly go through the motions. I know what they are now. And so I went in and I went through the motions. I put on my happy face, and I just went in and did the job. And I learned a really valuable lesson. And that was, sometimes you don't have to care that much to get things done, because if you just let the outcome happen, and that's what I realized, that the outcome was the same whether I cared or not. I got the same results. I got the same kind of reactions from people. Mostly they were happy to see me and get their free info and pens and whatever. And it was just as effective as if I cared. And so my takeaway was, sometimes you care too much. So we have to decide how important something is and whether we need to care about it. Okay, so that's number 4. It's just maybe you need to just care less and go through the motions instead. It sort of relieves you from the emotional labor of it. Okay, number 5 is ask for help. So when I was making Christmas dinner, I had a whole bunch of people here. I have a small house, basically a 1-person or just barely 2-person kitchen, and I had one of whom is a celiac. So with celiacs, there's a lot of things that you can't feed them, which meant making extra food. I had 6 side dishes to make on a 4-burner stove. At one point, I just made everybody get out of the kitchen because I was trying to think of everything at once and wasn't doing a very good job of it. And what I'm doing over here is just tapping my brush on the paper towel to take the moisture out of it. I actually don't remember who set the table. And I asked my oldest daughter to look after all the drinks, all the glasses, all that kind of stuff. So that was out of my head. And I asked my husband, who always does this, to carve the turkey. And it took all those things off my list. And so I still did the lioness's share of it. But it really helped to delegate. And sometimes you can go, okay, what can I not be the one to do? And that relieves a lot of stress. It's like, okay, that's in their capable hands. I don't need to think about it. And a lot of stress is basically what goes on in your head. So keep that in mind. I hope you've enjoyed watching this little demonstration. And don't forget that stickers are a great source of subjects that you can use to practice with. Look at these, aren't they adorable? I just love stickers. I love little pictures. I love all the artwork. It's just so pretty. Anyway, there's a lot of ideas for you. And happy sketching, and stay stress-free as much as you can. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and click the little bell to get the notifications. And I'll see you next time.